What tips would you have for people that are starting out, like just the realities? I mean, it's great. I don't want to diminish anybody's passion and excitement about where they can go, because I really believe that you always need a goal to strive towards.
Yep.
But what are those things in your mind as an investor, as a CFO, somebody who sits on successful boards of startups that make the difference?
So no one wants to hear what I'm about to tell you. It's that simple. It's that simple. Because it is that simple. The reality is that when you start a business, if you start, and by the way, I've been in both kinds of business. If you start a business to make money, you will fail. You might get lucky, but the odds are you're going to fail. If you start a business to build a great product or service for a customer base that actually perceives a need for that service, in other words, there is a need and you fill that need, as opposed to you're a solution in search of a problem, for instance, or in search of money, take your pick. The world is going to be a whole different place for you. And so I tell people over and over again, if you build a business for the business success, money will find you, it will take care of itself.
Right.
And more importantly is you'll have a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Because you're really building something to make the world a better place, make your customers' world a better place. And that's really what it's all about.
So here's a great question for you, because I've been in touch and communicating, building relationships with investors and individuals in Silicon Valley, and they will openly admit that they are in their own bubble. And yet I can open a magazine or read on Twitter, online somewhere, that some crazy company with some crazy concept has just gotten, $50 million. And yet, I find as a marketing person, if I don't find that idea, that concept engaging to me, I mean, sure, there are some people who will, but how do you deal with, especially in Chicago specifically, we're a very unique market. The startup community is quickly on the rise, exploding every day. That's why we're doing this. And yet we've sort of got the shadow of Silicon Valley behind us, and individuals saying, well, this company in Silicon Valley got funded for X amount of extreme, crazy amounts of dollars, so can my product. And I think that there is a really powerful distinction between both markets.
So it can, right? All the things you just said can happen.
Right.
But by the way, let's take it back to, not my favorite sport, but let's take it back to baseball, right? So baseball games are not won on grand slams and home runs. They're won on singles and doubles, right? So the reality is that all those things you just described can happen. If you bet the ranch on those things, then the ranch is probably going to be lost. I'll add a plug for my current organization right now. I recently joined a company called Kapow Events. We are in the marketplace business, which means the first question we get asked whenever they ask about us, because what we do is we manage and develop events for large clients. Without saying all the names, I probably shouldn't, but at least publicly here. But very, very large companies use us over and over and over again. One of our largest customers has done 160 events with us just this year alone. So having said that, what ends up happening is all that's really exciting stuff. So the first thing we get asked is, are you guys Uber or are you guys Airbnb? By the way, the answer is we're probably closer to Airbnb than we are to Uber. So rather than being valued at 18 billion like Uber is, which I don't quite understand, or 10 billion like Airbnb, we're more like $10 billion like Airbnb, which also isn't the case quite yet, but we'll get there. We are running our business like a business. So we are focused on the fundamentals. We're focused on metrics. We're focused on KPIs, key performance indicators, which is another element of metrics. We're focused on getting our framework in place so we can really run a real business for real bottom line. We do all those things, and then we add to it the sexiness of a marketplace industry, which is where we're focused right now. And all we get is we get the juice from that side of it, but we also have run a really well-run business, which positions us well when the marketplace comes to us and we go to the marketplace for funding and growth and opportunity.
So what are those things that you have looked for that you can do for that company? But I guess number one, what are the things the key indicators that you look for in that company that make you want to go work for them, to say, you know what, here's a startup that is probably not a traditional startup. They're in growth stage, right? Perfect time for you to come in and take them to the next level.
So interestingly enough, the first thing I look for is fun. I've hit a point in my life where I don't really have to worry about some of these things. So I really want to join a company where I can have a lot of fun. And a lot of fun to me, by the way, is really about building the teams of people it takes to make a place successful. It's about focusing again on those fundamentals I told you about. It's doing some of the things I've done over and over and over again. And again, tying into it a new sector, which just makes life even more interesting because I have to learn about that sector and move on.
That's interesting.
So that said, the companies that I look for are companies that have great growth prospects, right? And things are happening. They're already doing some of those things. They're actually intensely interested in being a better business, but they're not quite sure how to get there. And that's what a finance and an operations guy can bring to the table. And that's absolutely what I bring to the table over and over again, right? Through 8 of these things.
Right. So then the next step in some cases, the companies that you've worked with, the ultimate goal for them was to exit.
Not true. The ones who succeed, their ultimate goal is to build a fantastic business. The exit will follow naturally,
so
automatically.
That wasn't the end goal.
If you focus on that end goal, you're focusing on the wrong thing about the business because you're back to focusing about the money. Yeah. So I worked for a public organization that spent its time thinking about the market wants us to do this, whatever it is. Maybe it was a telecom company, and maybe it's the number of new customers we add each quarter, right? And so they got really good at that. And about the time they got really good at it, because that's the way markets were valued at that point. Now it was minimizing the churn of your customers, right? And so they got really good at that. Well, too late by the time they got there. So what really, the companies I've worked for that have been most successful, and by the way, that company was one of the ones that didn't work so well. The companies that are really successful are the ones that don't worry about what the market metrics are. They worry about what the metrics are that make their business more successful. Don't let the market tell you what the answer is that's going to make you more valuable, because it's not important. Figure out the things that are going to make you more successful with your customers, make you more successful with your own bottom line, and the market will be perfectly happy about that. They'll be very happy. They'll take care of you in spades.
Right, because if you are focused on something, say that exit point, then you are going to, your mind and your priorities are off what really matters within the business.
When you talk to a football player who's in the playoff series, what do they say? And sometimes they don't do it very well.
Disneyland.
No, what they say is we're not worried about the Super Bowl yet because that's 3 game series away.
Right.
We're worried about tomorrow's game. That's the game we're going to worry about, because that's where if we fail at that, we'll never get a shot at this.
Right.
So if you think about the exit, you will fail in the long run because you forget about all the stuff that gets you to the exit. And that's what's so important.